Bong Joon-ho has made some great films, from The Host to Snowpiercer, but the best of them was Parasite. It won Academy Awards. And now we've got Mickey 17, a big budget film with a lot of themes. Robert Pattinson and Stephen Wen, Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette. Oh fuck yes, oh fuck yes. Who's Mickey Barnes? Well, I'll tell you, he's an expendable that is going through a lot of deaths for research and capitalism. Because we've got Mickey Barnes as Mickey 17, and he's done with dying as his theme. He must try to battle this out and get away from this life in Mickey 17. Mickey 17. Mickey 17 was written and directed by Bong Joon-ho, who did The Host, Mother, Snowpiercer, Okja, and Parasite. Parasite, one of my favorite films of the last 25 years. I have watched it 3 times. I love it. God, that third act is so fucking magnificent. And this film has received quite the marketing campaign and also has been delayed a few times. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But yeah, Robert Pattinson as Mickey Barnes, and you have Stephen Wen, who's a terrific actor. You have Mark Ruffalo, you have Toni Collette. Toni Collette, I argue, still should have won an Oscar for Hereditary, or at least been nominated. But basically, this centers around Robert Pattinson's Mickey Barnes, who doesn't feel like he has much to live for. We find out why a little bit earlier on, and I'll talk about that in the spoilers. But this is set in the year 2054, so don't worry, folks. We get to see if we're able to colonize an ice planet by then, when we can barely take care of this one. Don't worry, I'll get to that. But Mickey signs up as an expendable, and basically the idea is, as an expendable, his mission is to die and be used as a guinea pig for disease control, for whatever, for all kinds of research. His memories are, taken from each experience and put into the other one and everything. And after dying a bunch of times, even if you try to get used to it, you may find that to be particularly old, and you may want to break free. You may want to break free. And during this, we get themes of capitalism, which I don't know if you've ever seen a Bong Joon-ho movie. He doesn't really like capitalism. He's kind of made that, subtly known. And by subtly, I mean he basically just beats you over the goddamn head with it. I'm not knocking, because he's right. Parasite was a perfect example. The Host actually was, too. Even if The Host had a bit of messy, edges to it, it actually was a pretty goddamn good movie. Parasite, though, I believe, was his peak. And given the fact that this budget, $118 million reportedly, I don't know if that includes marketing, dwarfs the fucking budget, shatters the budget of Parasite. A lot of fans were going to be interested to see how this particular film would turn out. And after delays and everything, we get to see Robert Pattinson as a man that is just being cloned over and over again. And it hurts so bad. It hurts so bad. He's got his friends. There's a theme of what is it like to die? You're probably used to it, but I just want to know. And there's a satirical edge to it. There's also some themes of, maybe inept politicians running things. God, it's a good thing we don't have that going on in this country right now. Yeah, Nimrod's voting for him again. But that being said, there are some very on-the-nose pieces and themes and images that get thrown right in your face, which that's not the worst thing in the world, because some people need things spelled out for them. And I'm just going to be honest here. Okay, when it comes to films like this that are delayed, either there's fine-tuning, they just want to find the right slot, or there's studio interference and maybe they realize they have a dud on their hands. Unfortunately, Mickey 17 falls in the other category, that latter category. I am very disappointed to say that I did not like Mickey 17 at all, and I will explain why. I know what the film was going for, and it had a little more fine-tuning, and had more than about, I'd say 20% of the jokes hit, I probably would have had a much better time watching this. And I actually watched In the Lost Lands and then this, and I will say that Mickey 17 way, way exceeds what In the Lost Lands provided, which was nothing. You can check out my review of that. But for a film that had this much hype around it, and the fact that it had a tumultuous, delayed release, really had me worried. This also reeks of studio interference. I have a feeling that any of his themes and any of his, stuff that he wanted to bring forth clashed with the fact that the studio wanted some ridiculous stuff going on, and not ridiculous in his vision, ridiculous, like, oh, this is something we can market. Because if you saw stuff in the trailer, you saw weird creatures, you saw, Robert Pattinson dying, and you even saw a funny thing that actually might have, mimicked that Challenger scene. You know which one I'm talking about. I do want to shout a few of the other cast members. Stephen Nguyen, I do think, is very good. Michael Monroe is actually pretty good, as well as Matthew. Datsy Farron, I actually think is pretty good as well. I love Toni Collette. Fucking love Toni Collette. She smashes it every time. Usually. I'd say 90% of the time. I do want to shout, Jude Mack, who's in Back in Action as Daphne. She's cute. Really has a good look. She only has a little bit part, but I just want to shout that there. Naomi Ackie as Nasha, who's kind of a love interest of Mickey. I actually thought she deserved... I thought her character deserved like a little more fine-tuning, because I thought that there was just... there just wasn't quite enough depth. Like, that's the thing. Ironically, for a film about cloning so much, you might feel like you're repeating some things. This film felt... It felt like it was spinning its wheels, not necessarily trying anything new. And yes, the idea is humans are expendable, especially when you're going to a plant to try and colonize it, and humans are just seen as cattle. Yeah, that might have worked if any of these characters were worth rooting for, and unfortunately they weren't. And this really feels like two halves of a concept that probably needed a little more fine-tuning. It's like Bong Joon-ho had some stuff in the first half, and it just felt like the second half was just totally messy, as far as like, boom, these characters are doing this, boom, this character is doing this, and it's just like certain scenes were fragmented and didn't fully get together. Not enough of it felt cohesive, and I think that was the biggest undoing with this. There was a character named Holiday Granger, who I do have to say is gorgeous. Good grief, she is. And I really wanted to like this. I really, really wanted to like this film a lot more than I did. It started out fine, and there were moments where I was like, okay, this is going to find that spark. I'm waiting. And I realized about, I would say 50 minutes to an hour in, I was not having a good time. And I just think that everybody is going to lay a goose egg, and Bong Joon-ho did here. He really absolutely laid a goddamn goose egg. And that's a shame. This will probably end up being one of the most disappointing films of 2025, which is, again, a real goddamn shame. Now, I'm going to talk about a few things in spoilers. I'm not going to get into a bunch of the minutia, because to me, what really this film is about is finding your humanity and realizing that life is worth living. And that's great. The thing is, you just have to give us characters that are worth rooting for, and unfortunately, it didn't. And the satirical stuff just didn't work. It's in theaters, though, if you do want to check it out. Maybe you guys will like it, maybe you won't, but I just fear with a $118 million budget, it might do well in South Korea, where he's popular, but I don't know if this is going to find a big U.S. audience. Maybe it will for the first week or two. I'd be very surprised if this film ends up really making its budget back and being a success. And disappointing. Disappointing is the best way I can describe it. But I'm going to get into spoilers. Feel bad for the cast, and Bong Joon-ho tried. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, in the beginning, we have Mickey and Timo, played by Stephen Nguyen, who basically make it's this bad business deal. They owe money to a loan shark, or owe money to a loan shark. And Mickey decides the best course of action is to leave and become an expendable. Also, there's this stuff in this airport lobby with such on-the-nose stuff about this one politician that is so inept. And people are wearing, a certain colored hat and everything, and talking about how great he is, even though they know he's a moron. Gee, I wonder who that's about. And, I mean, he's right, but the thing is it doesn't feel earned. It really doesn't feel earned. Mickey signs up to be an expendable. He doesn't realize what he got himself into, but he gets used to it. He meets Nasha on the ship that they are on, and they go to this ice planet that I believe is called Niflheim, which, if that's wrong, I apologize. I honestly don't care what the name of the planet is. And they're going to colonize it. Well, colonialism is bad, and it turns out there are actually these weird worm-like creatures that resemble larvae, and also bigger ones that resemble the brain bug from Starship Troopers. At least kinda. At least that's what I thought. And Mickey is in, this ice cave, And then it looks like he's going to get killed. And then we get a flashback. We get all this stuff and everything. And then we see, him meet Nasha, hook up, all that stuff. And then we go back to when he's in this particular cave. And he gets dragged away by this creeper, as they call it. And then gets rescued. He gets lifted up into the above the goddamn, cave opening, and that's it. He's saved. So that's a little bit weird. Why would they do that? So we also have Kenneth Marshall, played by Mark Ruffalo, who I know is supposed to be an inept politician, but it feels forced. It doesn't feel satirical. And you have Aoife, played by Toni Collette, who really is not allowed to flex her muscles here. They are harvesting these creatures for food, even using the tails for sauce for some reason. Again, a lot of this feels disjointed and messy. And meanwhile, Mickey is thought to have died. So they created Mickey 18. The problem is Mickey 17 is still alive, and there's this rule that we see when we go back 4 2/3 years ago, because we're Duck Dodgers apparently, that, well, the cloning, having an expendable program is one thing, but having multiples is a bad thing, because there was this guy that apparently was a serial killer, and then there was another multiple, and another multiple, so like 3 of them were doing kills, I guess. And that basically led to this idea that multiples are expelled. Well, now we have Mickey 17 and 18, so they gotta hide that, except they're not very good at hiding this stuff. Also, the colony is run by fucking idiots. Because Mark Ruffalo, I know, is supposed to be this guy that thinks he's all smart and all powerful. But even the soldiers around him don't necessarily seem to think he's all that good. Yes, there's the propaganda stuff about having cameras ready and filming this. Oh, yes, and there's also a molten lava pit where you can throw the expendables in there. Actually, Mickey's really the only expendable. But I assume there are others. I don't know. We don't really see any of that. And meanwhile, Mickey is trying to figure out why the bugs maybe they didn't like how he tasted. Turns out these bugs actually don't eat people. They just want to be left alone because this is their goddamn planet. Again, colonialism. You get it. And there is a point where Nasha is going to try to basically sleep with both Mickey 17 and 18, and she even labels him. And I mean, I guess that was supposed to be funny, but it didn't really work out. There's this character named Kai, played by Anna Marie V. I forgot her last name, but she's cute. I'll say that much. She isn't given much to do either. At first, she's like, not necessarily doe-eyed, but she's like, she wants to help Mickey after a dinner, goes basically tits up because a girlfriend of hers got killed instead of Mickey, because she got killed in the ice thing, and that was before Mickey got dragged out by the creepers. And then Toni Collette wants to create this sauce and this juice and this kind of stuff and harvest these creatures. And the idea is there's this rock that was brought in that was going to be cut open at this demonstration. Mickey 18, meanwhile, was at this dinner, and I think it was 18, feels like he was poisoned, or, he was he was experimented on, this kind of stuff. So he decides, I'm going to try to shoot Mark Ruffalo's character, and that doesn't end up working out. It's a big old mess. It sort of reminds me of, like, what they tried to do in Parasite, except they did it better in Parasite. Like, just the lunch or, the party scene, which they did a lot better there. And from there, we basically get, we get a side plot with Stephen Wen where everybody's arrested, basically, except Timo basically realizes, hey, wait a second, I got a message from this loan shark guy, last name of blank, I got to kill you. There was this part where this guy got killed with a chainsaw for not paying on time. And see, you didn't lean enough into satire like that, so you didn't necessarily care. But there is this, the idea is Timo has to film him or Mickey being killed, and that's it. He'll let him go. Otherwise, an associate will come up and will take care of him. Oh, yes, and also Timo is dealing some kind of weird oxy-type drug, which I guess is a big no-no again, all this stuff is just so busy and it doesn't have anything to say, and it needed to pare a few things down. It's not like it was hard to follow, it's just it was hard to care. That was the biggest thing about it. So there's this one little scientist girl that basically ends up helping out Mickey, and she makes like a translating device because it turns out actually they captured one of the creatures from the rock. One of them got shot up, and now the mother bug creeper thing is all pissed off and basically says, "Return my young, or that's it, we're going to go to war," because there's a lot more of them than there are of us. And there's this idea of using this toxin. This toxin is Mickey's experiment on with this toxin. The idea is they're going to kill all these creepers, but the thing is, you have to get them in a certain area, I guess. Again, it's really messy. And earlier, when he was getting ready for the expendable program, there was an injection that was given that unlocked a lot of his memories, like when he lost his mother when he was a young child. So a lot of that stuff pours into how he feels like he really doesn't have much left to live for because of the loan shark stuff. But then he finds Nasha and feels, after dying so many times, that, hey, wait a second, she's stuck with me. Maybe I could end up finding love. Maybe I could find a reason to live. Clarence, I want to live again. So there's this device made by one of the scientist girls that basically will translate what the creeper is saying for Mickey. And the idea is the creatures just want to be left alone. Meanwhile, Mark Ruffalo is preparing to have this big old battle going, and even has this part where Nasha has to hold this creature impaled on something with its teeth, and then basically Mickey, 17, and 18 have to go out and harvest tails from all these creatures, and whoever gets to 100 tails wins and keeps their life. Again, it gets really messy in the second half, and not messy in a good way. And then they end up deciding not to do that, to communicate with the creatures, while Mickey 17 does. And then Mickey 18 battles Mark Ruffalo and ends up pressing the button, because there's a 17, 18 button. Presses that, kills him. And this is right after basically Nasha is able to rescue the impaled on a hook. Kind of like, a worm, so it probably wasn't going to last very long. But the idea is to make peace with this, and because Mark Ruffalo's character is dead, okay, that's it. All peace is good. Timo then ends up basically having to battle the associate, and sends the associate down into the fiery pits, gets himself off in a trial by claiming self-defense. But meanwhile, because a politician died, 17 and Nasha are basically dealing with all this stuff. Toni Collette's character goes completely, absolutely tits up. 6 months later, Nasha has taken over as the big politician. I don't know. And then there's one final dream sequence where basically the idea is he was going to press this red button, Mickey was, to blow up this the cloning deal. They got rid of the expendable program. And the idea is, now since 18's dead, 17 found something to live for, he has one final dream sequence where he thinks Toni Collette has cloned Mark Ruffalo clone, as it were. And yeah, that's basically where we see blood on the floor. He's tasting blood, all this stuff. Oh my God, it's all this crazy thing. But then it's obviously a dream. He senses that he's not afraid anymore. He's not afraid of dying. And that's when he accepts his fate, I guess. And then he is told to push the button because he's been daydreaming. Blows it up, and then that's it. And it just that. What I miss in this, I mean, I've seen some praising for it. I've even seen some praising reviews that say it's not exactly his best, and it's not. I'm sorry, Mickey 17 was just not very good. If I didn't get it, okay, but it's like I've seen his other films. They were more complex and easier to get. Despite that, this just did not click. It gets an F. I'm sorry, it gets an F. It is not good. And also, I don't know what the fuck was with his accent. It was all over the northeastern quadrant. Nevertheless, if agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rickland, and I'll see you soon.